I'm excited to welcome to the stage Seraj Bharwani, Chief Strategy Officer at Acuity Ads. Seraj is going to lead an introduction course into advertising automation, which has emerged as a new category of AdTech that brings advertising planning and media execution into a single platform, giving media planners and buyers visibility into and seamless control over the consumer journey. Hopefully during this session, you will learn how their illumin technology, which was launched on October 1st, can offer you omni-channel control over the consumer journey with sequential messaging across the open web, utilizing a wide range of ad formats, devices, and publishers with real-time measurability and insights. We will be doing a poll. If you want to answer and participate, please make sure to view in immersive mode and not use the chat box. With that said, take it away, Seraj.
All right, hello. How is everybody? Good morning. Very delighted to be here, and thank you for joining us, and thank you for IAB for bringing us on board to present to you what is the topic for today, which is advertising automation. So let's jump right in. Am I supposed to see? Yes, excellent. I'm glad I see it. Once in a while, when you see my eyes drift over to the right or the left, it's because I'm looking at the clicker, nothing else. So what you see on the screen is what is top of mind for the advertisers. It's about getting the customer journey under control. What does that mean? Dig a little deeper. There are three things they're asking for. One, they want the greater control over brand messaging delivered to the consumers, increased transparency, which is better knowledge of marginal cost and understanding of exactly where the cost structure is in terms of what the efficiencies are, and then ultimately cost savings. All right, if that's the case, what does it mean, customer journey? Where does it begin and where does it end? So traditionally, it's about two different blocks of where the consumers are. One is before they have done any transaction with you as a brand, and then if they do in fact transact with you, they become part of your customer file. Marketing automation is what deals generally with post-purchase, which is essentially building the relationship, building the loyalty, building the lifetime value. But we are focused on advertising automation that's supposed to deal with the pre-purchase, which is the vast majority of the audience that will ultimately drive growth for you. You don't believe me? Ask Byron Sharp. He's done extensive research in this category to really understand that most of the growth that brands can drive will be through acquisition. All right. So on that topic, let's go to the poll just to get a quick assessment of the people who are in the audience as to how easy or difficult is it for you to control the pre-purchase consumer journey, which is actually the process of acquiring new consumers, new customers. Is it easy? Is it difficult? It would be great to have a quick poll on that so that we have a little feel for sort of where you are in your assessment of the work you are doing for your own companies. Or if you are an agency person, how easy or difficult it is for your clients. All right. Overall, it seems like there is a spectrum here in terms of what people believe is this part of the journey, which is going out there, finding the consumers, following through all the way to really get them on board. That's the part that is generally not as transparent. Quite a few people are saying it's very difficult to really achieve that. So let's think through that. Exactly what is involved here? What really happens? What is traditionally the way advertisers or marketers go about doing this part of it, right? How do they map? See, what they do is they either spend a lot of time cross-functionally with different divisions, including marketing, providing the leadership. And many times they bring in the agency as part of the planning process to go through and map out where the consumers are, what would be the big barriers, what are the right messages to deliver at different points, and so forth. So they do extensive due diligence and a lot of research that goes into it, which could last months, many times, if not years. And then what happens is today, the predominant form is a very efficient way of actually acquiring new customers is programmatic technology. Unfortunately, the way those plans and the journey maps enter into the programmatic black box, as we call it, is it gets all fragmented. And the way you see the results are just as equally segmented out into individual tactics, which is what was originally a journey has become a collection of tactics. And these tactics could be dozens, if not hundreds, sometimes thousands. And so what happens is it's lost, what you were planning versus what got executed. And that is the hard part today in terms of how do you manage that pre-purchase process and how do you gradually guide the consumer. And I think this is where Illumin is the platform that is squarely addressing that aspect of the journey, which is how do you look at the upstream planning process? How do you map it directly to the way the media is supposed to be activated so that it is a seamless process all the way through? For those of you in the audience who would say, you know what, programmatic technology was supposed to do all of this stuff. And yes, I agree. What it is doing is it's actually truly automating the individual transactions, but not really the whole journey planning all the way through, right? Okay. So then what does that have to start with? So first of all, you have to have some control over your audience. You have to know who these audiences are and where are they in the journey. Everybody is individually in their own space. And the way you get an idea of where they are in their journey towards potentially having or doing business with your brand is number one, what are they paying attention to, the content they're consuming, what interests they have, which you can pretty much establish many times from social, what kind of things they are searching for, what are they searching for, that tells you something, and their affinity, which is the related brands they deal with. That begins to give you some idea of where the audience is today. And then essentially what you want to do, here's an example. One of our leading partners, advertisers, is a Purple Mattress. This is one of the examples of the type of audience that they look for. People who suffer from back pain. Look at all the ways in which you can get the signals to establish people who might be sensing, feeling one or the other form of back pain, right? And that begins to sort of give you a feel for where this person is on their journey, potentially having some relevance to how they get the sleep, and therefore there might be a need for a mattress, right? That gets mapped into, Purple does extensive job in terms of figuring out where they might be on their journey. Are they really aware of the brand? Are they really familiar with what it is that we offer? Are they familiar with how that might be relevant to them? Have they been sufficiently educated? Are they engaged with what we have to offer? And then on top of it, are they inclined to want to do business with us? This is the whole map that you construct. And then here's an example I wanted to give you. Given a forum like this, you need to get a feel for how this might actually get mapped out. So look at this. There is nothing out there in the market that does anything of this sort, which is really you can drag and drop individual audiences, map the creative and the messaging to it, put the decision points against it, as you will see here in a second. How you can really, depending on the behavior or the action the consumer takes, then you lead to the next sequential message that you can deliver to them based on what they're already aware of. These things can be mapped out based on what you originally feel as a marketer of how the consumer potentially will need to go through in messaging. Then you publish this, you activate it. This is the time when the programmatic technology with all of its AI and machine learning is supposed to do its job, which is really figure out what is the most optimal way to guide the consumer all the way through to conversion or through transaction. Now, what does optimal mean? Optimal means two things. Fewest number of impressions, because obviously you don't want to annoy the consumer, which is what happens frequently these days. And second, obviously fewer impressions means less media investment. And that's essentially what the shaded path is actually showing you as optimal in all the ways imaginable, right? All right. We refer to this as engagement map. You can really follow through. You know where people are dropping off or what they're doing or what decisions they're making, all of that. Not only that, not only do you have aggregate data, but this is really where the marginal cost comes into the picture. The marginal cost of transitioning a consumer from awareness stage to engagement stage, or from engagement stage to a conversion stage, that is really the key here, because remember, you have many choices in terms of the channels, many choices in terms of the interactions and messages you could deliver. The point is, what is the lowest cost, the low marginal cost of really transitioning a user from stage 1 to stage 2, which is the most critical piece to understand, and literally in real time, right? Okay, so let's talk about use cases where this technology and this whole element of the way of planning and execution built into creating a whole new category of advertising automation be most relevant. Well, here are all the categories in which we have clients. So I already spoke about purple. Now, where it works ideally in the initial use cases that we have seen, where you are driving a considered purchase. Why a considered purchase? Because if it's a big ticket item, like something you're going to pay, like a mattress, you pay 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 bucks, or online education, where you might end up paying $50,000 to $70,000 committing to an online degree, or home improvement, building out a deck for $20,000. These are all huge expenses. You're not going to commit to something on the first impression delivered to you by the advertiser, which means you have to really guide the user through messages across the variety of channels wherever the consumer is, and providing them guidance through the way and making it efficient, where it's going to make a huge difference on the return on your ad spend or cost per acquisition, however you actually measure it. All of these are highly relevant. You can see financial services. If you're going to make a commitment to a college savings plan, you're going to put in probably $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 associated with that, right? All of those things will matter. Okay, here's another category where we see amazing relevance to this. This is what we call direct to consumer. Look at the number of big brands that are making some serious acquisitions, buying up these DTC, or what we call digitally native brands. Why are they doing that? They're doing it because they actually want to have direct relationship with the consumer, not because they're not getting enough business through their distribution channels. It's because they want to get to know the consumer better. They want to know what are consumers' preferences. They want to know the journey they go through to have a better understanding of who they are dealing with and the diversity of consumers who would be interested in doing business with them. Of all the players, here is the one that's actually proven it to you literally with real business. Nike, that started just a few years ago, shifting a lot of emphasis direct to consumer because they have some very interesting things to offer. This is the first year they're going to deliver over 30% of their revenue through Nike.com. I mean, this is DTC live. Amazing example of the journey that they actually manage, the way they inspire people, the way they connect them with, the limited selections that they offer, their price points, and the diversity of price points they actually offer. It's fascinating. I mean, they wanted so much control over their journey that they actually even bailed out of Amazon because they felt that they weren't getting enough control of the brand through Amazon. So they essentially went everything direct. So, and Purple, I already mentioned, Purple just celebrated its 5th anniversary here recently in October when they were on stage with us. They've grown at a rate of 45% a year, steady, and they are almost a $2 billion valuation company from where they started zero in 2016. It's a fascinating example of a company that has really, really managed the journey meticulously, quite carefully. And they use a whole range of assets, both evergreen assets, promotional assets, branding and awareness assets, a whole collection of it depending on where the consumer is in their journey. All right, let me summarize this for you in terms of what it is that you need to think of when you think of advertising automation. There are 3 things that come to mind here. First is journey creation, something that you do not really get today, right? From programmatic advertising, you do not get that today, not even from the closed ecosystems of Google. Number 1 is journey creation. What does that mean? You need a common canvas from where you can do both planning and media activation. Your media and your planning needs to be hotwired. They need to be seamless. So that's the first thing you need to understand and how that needs to be done. Translating that all that tactical stuff that I talked about with line item interfaces into really visually representing it so that the marketers can make some sense of it as to what the hell is it, and can I make some sense out of it, and how do I know that my money is actually being invested in the right places in the right stages in the journey. Second is journey control. The control is about messaging and the ability to cover sequential messaging across a diversity of channels, in particular addressable channels, of course, is key. How do you do that? What is the right way to do that? Frankly, you all heard, we released Illumin on the 1st of October. Google came on the 14th of October and talked about how they're going to begin to really show the connection between people searching and then people watching videos on YouTube. You see, we are beginning to see the early stages of this sequential messaging coming into play, the coming on of the advertising automation and bits and pieces here and there. We're trying to bring it all together in one pass. And then real-time optimization and insights. What's the value of all this AI if it cannot really bring all these insights in real time? Let the machine do the hard work. You put the hypothesis, you build the canvas, and let the machine figure out what is the optimal path, and let it drive the efficiencies for you. Let it show you what decisions it's actually making so that you can make sense of it and learn from it. And then finally, it's all about compression, right? What does that mean? It's about containment of annoyance. You see, people are moving towards ad-free content because we've pissed them big time. We've pissed them off. We have actually thrown a lot of ads at people to the point they don't want to deal with it anymore. The goal is to reduce the ad load. The goal is to reduce the number of impressions. And in the process, of course, do yourself a favor and reduce your cost. And then understand the marginal cost. How do you know where the next impression should be invested in? Should you be investing the next impression on influencer marketing, on social media, on search, on programmatic, on different channels? Where should the money go? Well, that is all going to be determined going forward based on where in the stage in the journey the consumer is and what is the most appropriate and efficient, most effective investment to be done to move the consumer further towards your brand, to be positively inclined to do the transaction with you eventually. Remember, that's about as far as the advertising automation is supposed to take you. After that, marketing automation is supposed to take control. Why? Because the customer is already in your file, as I mentioned before. Once the consumer is in your file, you now have their email address, you have potentially their phone, and you can begin to take control of that and build out a long-term relationship with them. Okay? So that's essentially what it is. So where are we planning to go next with this thing, right? In case you're wondering, okay, there is a lot for me to learn. There's a lot going on. Our goal is obviously to make all of this thing totally hands-on for you so that you can begin to, touch, feel, kick the tires, get some control over this thing. And so in that respect, we are partnering with IAB's Brand Academy. And next year, we are going to bring this whole series of 4 different sessions once a quarter to give you an idea of all of these topics that I talked about. How do you create the journey? How do you really build out the journey? How do you really measure it, take control of it, and begin to really build out in a way that really compresses the journey in a way you can deliver the results in the most cost-effective way. Cost of customer acquisition is absolutely top of mind for every client that we work with. And I'm sure the same is true with every advertisers. If you're an agency you work with, same idea, same story. I think this is the growth formula, and advertising automation is here to essentially take and address it really forthright. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your time. Obviously, if you have any questions, bounce it to us. Go to our site, illumin.com. You can certainly throw questions over there. We'll be more than happy to respond to you.